Hey there, Leo. Happy new moon in Cancer. How are you doing? So this is the day of the new moon in Cancer, and there's a real sort of like radical feel to it. Not the usual sort of cute and fluffy and comfortable new moon in Cancer that we usually get where we're looking for safety. I do think we are looking for some safety, but there's also quite a bit of background noise, a lot of chaos. And I really think that what's happening is the truth is bubbling up underneath, and it's creating waves. Actually, if you've seen my new moon in Cancer forecast, you'll see that asteroid chaos and truth are really tight in that new moon. So who knows where that's going to take us. Now, this forecast is taking us from today's new moon right the way through to the full moon in Capricorn. Now, this particular full moon is pretty heavy duty. It's quite heavy in its energy. It's asking us to work harder, to get more efficient and effective. It's also testing our resiliency with a T-square between the sun and the moon, and Chiron, the wounded healer. It's probably going to make us feel quite unsteady. So, I'm going to be navigating that space. But the big noise during this time is that Uranus is leaving the sign of Taurus, where it's been since 2018. And then permanently there since March 2019. It has a 7-year cycle in every sign, and he's going to be moving into Gemini, and he's coming into Gemini. He'll be leaving later on this year and then coming back in permanently on the 26th of April 2026, and he's going to be there right the way through to 2032. So this new move is going to be sowing some very deep seeds. Now, Uranus represents liberty and shocks and the sort of shaking consciousness, like, things are getting shaken up a little bit so that we see life differently, that we have a new kind of consciousness. And yes, it can be quite shocking. So what I'd like to answer in this short-ish forecast for you are 3 questions. The first one is, how are you shattering the limits around you right now? There appears to be this kind of breaking going on, and I guess I want to know how you can do it consciously. What might be showing up. The second thing that I'm considering is, how are you making empowered choices during this 2-week period? What would be good choices for you to make during this time between the new moon in Cancer and the full moon in Capricorn? And then finally, how are you building solid foundations for your bright future? What steps can you take on this particular journey? So, to me, this does feel like a time of radical change. I do think we are coming into a time of reclaiming our own awareness. I think layers of BS are coming back. And I say that also because Neptune is going to be going retrograde during this period, and that's going to be putting us onto a path of much deeper inner work. So let's see how all of this is going to show up. Now, if you're new to this channel, my name's Louisa Tanner Munson. Welcome. I hope you like it. My aim here is to decode the planetary placements so that we feel like we can have choice, that we can see what's clearly ahead and choose what we might want to, what might give us more freedom and more opportunity. And so that's why I've designed this. Now, I'm using a Western tropical whole sign model. Now, if you're familiar with astrology, which I'm sure you are, if you're watching this channel, if you use Placidus when you are drawing up your chart, like for instance, I use Placidus in mine. So I've got Scorpio rising, but when I look in my first house, I've got Scorpio in it and also Sagittarius. So if you're using a Placidus charting system, you might find it useful to listen into Leo and then also listen into Virgo. You can also use this if this is your sun sign as well. But if you are listening to this as your sun sign, don't forget to check out your ascendant sign as well. The ascendant sign is really how this has been designed. But feedback is good. So yeah, that's what we're going to do. That's what we're going to do. So there's quite a few extra little bits and pieces that I've already done that might be helpful. There is a new moon in Cancer video. I've also I'm releasing an all signs video to accompany all of these individual zodiac sign versions. That one goes much deeper into what's going on in this next 2 weeks, including a lot more about Mercury and a lot more about Venus, which I probably won't get round to sharing too much of it today. I've also got a recent release, Jupiter in Cancer, that could be useful. And I've got this ancient, but still very useful podcast on this channel. It's a Uranus playlist, and it looks at Uranus through all the different houses. So if you know where Uranus is in your birth chart, you can check out the reading and listen in and learn a little bit more. So hopefully that's helpful. So I'm going to be looking at 2 charts today. The new moon in Cancer one and also the full moon in Capricorn one. But before I do that, I just always like to say a big thank you to everybody that supports this channel and really helps me to continue doing what I love. So I really, really appreciate you. Thank you so much. Anyway, let's have a look. So the new moon in Cancer then, from the Leo perspective, so this is the first house, second, third, fourth, fifth, all the way around to the 12th house. You'll see this new moon in Cancer is really highlighting things in the 12th house experience for you. Now, the 12th house is a place that's very private. It's very intuitive. It's hidden. And it's also a place that's not physical. You know, like if I knock on my table, you can hear that that's physical, right? But the 12th house is largely in the mind or the unconscious mind, or you could even say the Akashic records. You could even say all of life. You know, it's that kind of energy where, well, the way I see it is, and you might have a different view. You probably do. You know, we're all individuals. But the way I see life, I think I'm a soul or a spirit. You know, I am a spiritual being inside this like physical body. And I do feel like there's more of me outside of me, weirdly enough. You know, like there's more of my soul's essence. You know, I believe that as souls, we're so big that we can't all cram into our tiny little bodies. So, you know, this kind of 12th house is almost like the invisible you as well as the visible you. In fact, it's more about your invisible. And it looks at your programming. It looks at a lot of your belief systems that have come in. Some of these shocks, some of your deepest fears and insecurities are kind of held in this place. It's a bit like a dream world. I always think of it as, I think of this as a circle of life. And, you know, the first house is all about the birthing. And when we get around here, we're really defining our life and really, you know, organizing things and bringing things into our world so that we're defining who we are and getting busier and busier. It's like we're more and more physical, like my table here. But as we come around here, we start to dematerialize. And so as we come into the 12th house, I think this is a place where our identity comes to die. We start to let go of some of the things that we've held on to. And we pay a lot more attention to our spiritual domain. And so this particular new moon in Cancer, whilst it doesn't seem so obviously important, you know, like, you know, from a very polarity based world that we live in, which really reveres the physical and not so much the spiritual or mental. But this new moon, I think, is very powerful. You know, it's in a very secret, silent place where if you can get some time to yourself to chill out, to relax, to tune in, to write to yourself, to talk to yourself, to consider yourself. And to me, this new moon is really saying you're due for a moment of shedding, you know, like a snake or a crab might change its shell or its skin. It's time for you to like let go of all those things that are feeling tight around you now. You know, this is the time for you to loosen that and become free, you know, sort of become free of all of those tightnesses that you're enduring in your life. And so this is a place of softness for sure. And Jupiter is here, and Jupiter in the 12th house also really encourages this big exploration of your intuition. I do think this is the start of a new intuitive journey, at least for this next month ahead, if not beyond that. You know, Jupiter being here is also going to be precipitating that. Now, if we move from the new moon, and the moon is going to come all the way around here to the full moon position, you'll also see that Venus is going to shift. You'll see Mercury shifting signs, and Mars is moving more into here. You'll see the sun moves a little bit. Also, Uranus is going to change signs. You'll see all this shift in just a second. There it goes. So when we come around to the full moon in Capricorn on the 10th of July, even though we're on this emotional, spiritual journey of letting go of our old identity, the moon here is kicking up a bit of it's almost a bit afraid to die. And I think this full moon is really showing you, it's like pulling you back into the physical world. It's saying, no, this story can't end. We must do this. We must do this. And so it's almost like a whiplash reaction, I think, or a sudden fear reaction, a bit like you're about to get onto a really, really scary roller coaster. And just as the guy is coming to lock you into your chair, you're like, no, I'm out of here. And you like get up and go. You know, to me, it just feels like this full moon is pulling you back into the physical. And yet right now there's a need for softness and a need for rest and a need to kind of dream a little bit and not be so active. In fact, that is really active. You know, when you're in that dream state, even though it feels like you're not doing anything by real world physical and material standards, actually you're laying down the groundwork for some really important stuff. So a really interesting 2-week period, I would say, which is taking you from the imaginary and this place of rest to the feeling of stress that happens when you're pulled out of your bed before you've had enough sleep. And that's how I really think of this. And so, yes, that's quite a strong tension to hold. There are much more stressful places to have this full moon. And so I think this is a good one for you. It's not going to be too dangerous for you or difficult. But alongside that journey of maybe not resting enough and feeling like you're being dragged into the real world, you've also got Neptune going into retrograde, coming back into the 8th house. He's not going to be into the 8th house just yet, but he's heading in that direction. You've also got Mercury changing signs and coming into your 1st house, which I'll talk about in a minute. That's kind of important. But the big important one is what's going on between Venus and Uranus on between the 4th and the 7th. So if I do this in order, so the first thing that we really notice is Mercury, straight after this new moon, you'll see that Mercury is lining up into a lovely trine with Neptune and Saturn. And will also be coming into an opposition with Pluto. Mercury is coming into your 1st house. So from the 26th, this is a time when you're back in your body. It feels like at least you're not back in your physical body, but like your mind is really, really active. When Mercury comes in here, you are thinking about lots of things and you're ready to communicate in lots of different ways. It's interesting that that's happening whilst you're also in this kind of rest state as well. To me, I see this as almost and I did this when I was learning hypnosis, that you can hypnotize somebody, but then ask them to open their eyes and to talk, but stay like hypnotized, you know. So there is this kind of almost like living meditation. That's how I would describe this. So the more you can sort of stay in your meditative state, but come into this stream of consciousness and be able to talk and be able to communicate and be able to relate to people, I think it's going to be quite fantastic. I think you'll actually start to channel quite easily. I think interesting things are going to come up. It's also a time when you're likely to get invited to lots of different things. I would probably wait until after at least a week. You know, I would try and slow down on the social things and rest a little bit, maybe do some writing or, you know, reaching out in another way. I think there's going to be a lot of call for you to be really sort of interactive in the local environment. And then there appears to be a bit of a gap between the 30th and the 3rd. And really what I see going on here is that, you know, there's this almost, you know, like the idea of a calm before the storm. I don't necessarily think this is a storm, but I definitely see that there is this almost, you know, like when you get that feeling, you go out for a walk and all of a sudden the pressure in the air, it just feels a little bit different and you know something's about to happen, but it's not quite ready. It's a bit like that. And, you know, I think this is a time when you can probably get a lot of little chores done. And I think it's a good time to really get your arse in gear. As we're coming up to, I don't actually have a chart for the 4th, so we'll have to imagine this. So you can see that Venus is here, and coming up to the 4th, she's getting closer and closer to Uranus. And then what happens is she comes into a conjunction with Uranus right in between your 10th and the 11th house. Now, this is really exciting, actually, because Venus has been in the 10th house for a while, really sort of picking up this feeling of amazing new opportunities in terms of your career. And now you need to actually go out into the marketplace and you need to go and meet people to bring these dreams into reality. Now she's coming into a conjunction with with Uranus just before she goes into Gemini. Now, this is the last time Venus and Uranus are coming together in the sign of Taurus. So this is like the closing down of their connections during that Taurus time. You know, Venus is all about flow and love and generosity, and she's helpful. I think she's yielding. She is attractive. It can also show a surprising new person coming into your world. And Uranus is about the suddenness, the new consciousness, the new opportunity, the spontaneity, the spark. And so I think there is a friendly spark, a career spark, a networking spark that could be ignited around the 4th, so which, by the way, would give you time to relax a lot in the first week. So this is probably why I would, recommend resting a little bit. And then around the 4th to the 7th, this is your game on time. This is the time, to really get moving. And so yes, she goes into the sign of Gemini, and to me, it's almost like she's still in this conjunction with Uranus. So as she's coming into Gemini, she's bringing that surprising energy, that feeling of change into your 11th house. She's also making connections to Saturn and Neptune, and also to Pluto. So she's working with all of the slower moving planets. To me, it feels like the architecture of your life to move from seed idea to move into a bigger idea of what you're going to generate and how you're going to generate it with other exciting people. To me, this is the start of something really important. As Uranus comes over on the 7th, and on that day, she makes an exact trine to Pluto. I think this is so strong. You know, this 11th part of the chart, it is a fabulous place in terms of meeting exciting people, networking. This is a place of the law of attraction where, if you can think it, you can bring it about. It's also a place of ideology. So you may well find that you're bringing in a lot of people that have a very sort of similar way of thinking to you. You might be bringing in, especially if you're holding space for mentors coming in, for exciting people, with really good business opportunities. If you're really wanting to bring friends in who have got a slightly lifted kind of consciousness that are going to add something to your life, this is the time. This is the time when your life is likely to open up and become a lot more international and also a lot more intentional. So I just think there's a lot of really great things about to emerge because of this. So if we tie this into the overall story, from start to finish, that at the start of this particular forecast, you're in this place of maybe needing to rest a little bit, and to dream and to connect into the energy of like the new person you're becoming, like you're letting go of a lot of these old ideas about yourself. And then at the end of this period of time, you've gone through this change. There are lots of people coming into your world. There's new opportunities to market and do new things. Maybe it's all happening a bit too fast for you, but coming up to the full moon in Capricorn, it feels like you've been dragged out of your quietness and into a new sense of busyness. Now, if I was in your shoes, actually, it's not. That's not where I need to go. I said I was going to answer 3 questions. So, how are you shattering your limits? First of all, I think you're learning that you're a lot more intuitive than you realize. I think this new moon to the full moon, I think it's showing you that even though there's all these opportunities, lots of outside things going on, I think you're actually learning something new about yourself. And that is that you're maybe not as extroverted as you may think you are. That maybe you need a lot more time to prepare yourself emotionally and psychically before you engage in these new opportunities. So that's the first thing I think you're kind of breaking for yourself. You're breaking the spell of this. You're shattering your illusion. How are you making empowered choices right now? I would say your empowered choices are in terms of the kind of lifestyle you're wanting to create. I really see that this house is the law of attraction house. I really see that you're co-creating, because if you're working with the universal energy or God or your higher self or actual real life people, this is all a co-creation. So your empowered choices right now is to focus your intention and to know exactly what it is you want to be creating, and not to allow your inner mentality to deviate from that. If you know the kind of energy you want to be in, this is the time to feel into it and to sit in it and to expect it to happen. So it's your empowered choices, I think, is coming into a spiritual expectancy, an expectancy of freedom, that feeling of freedom. How are you building foundations for your brighter future? Oh, that's a really good one. I actually think Pluto over here in your 7th house is really showing us that there are some, not only are there exciting new opportunities coming in, but there are some really powerful people coming in. And I think you're on a journey to learn about control and how actually you have more control when you don't exercise your control. When you need control over the people in your life, you probably also meet people with control issues as well. But when you start to lose that sense of needing to have everything a certain way, in terms of how you're interacting with people, I think you're going to invite and attract a lot of really beautiful, open-hearted people who are really, really powerful. So my question to you that I'm going to leave you with is, do you want control over your life, or do you want the power? I really think you're coming into a time of extreme levels of power and influence. And so, yeah, actually shattering your limits, I think you should shatter those away. Really allow yourself to tune in and stay really focused on that beautiful sort of intuitive new moon. That is really going to help you get the right instincts to be able to move forwards in life. So I'm going to leave that there. And to my favorite Leo ascendant person, my husband, happy birthday on the 7th. I love you loads. Bye for now. Oh, actually not quite bye for now, because if you do want to know a little bit more and go even deeper into these powerful, influential times for you, if you like the way I do my forecasts, then you might also like a relationship forecast every 2 weeks, and also a career forecast every 2 weeks. So they come every new moon, every full moon. In fact, I released these yesterday before I even release these. I give them to my members first before I go to YouTube. So you get 4 forecasts each month that aren't released anywhere else. I also do a Monday to Friday, like 5 forecasts every week, day by day forecasts, which are also popular. I also do now 2 community hangouts every fortnight, where you're invited to join me in a Zoom call. And we have a central topic, and we all bring our charts and we talk about different things. It's a great way to learn together, and it's a great way to share experience. We've got a really lovely sort of healing sort of vibe in our group, and we've got people from all over the world, from Hawaii right the way through to Japan, and also down to New Zealand, I believe. So, we're all different walks of life, all different age groups, doing different things, but all learning and sharing together. We've also got, at the moment, we've got lovely Whitney Mullings, a shaman who's leading us in new and full moon ceremonies as well. So yeah, loads of different perks there. If that sounds of interest to you, if it sounds like a yummy way to proceed, then just go into the description fields and you'll find all the information that you need. Final thing, if you are interested in asking 5 free questions, there's a link below in my description box. It's leading to a new startup called Astronext on WhatsApp. And that could really help you with your astrological decisions. So I'm going to leave that there. Lots and lots of love to you. Have a great one, and speak to you all soon. Bye for now.